So I'm Chris Todd. I'm a co-founder and vice president of engineering for TapHere Technology, a small firm based out of the DC area. And this is Keith, our director of partner solutions. Hey, Keith.
Hey, everyone.
So let's take it away. Keith, do you want to start and kick us off here?
Yeah. So DevOps, there's that word again. All right. So DevOps has a lot of different definitions depending on who you talk to, but I think we all kind of believe, or at least I choose to believe, that the common theme amongst those different definitions is that if you practice DevOps, you believe that you're embracing and practicing the cultural objectives of the DevOps community, and that results in delivering value to your business, your mission, your users faster. Many of us are on a DevOps journey. Some of us have been doing this for a while, and some of us are learning about it for the first time. Regardless of where you are on this journey, we've all either understood or we've seen this work and have experienced maybe real tangible outcomes for our businesses. And that success isn't hyperbole, right? Thanks to research efforts like the State of DevOps report from DORA, we know that there are key metrics in organizations which can indicate that you're on the right path to that success, right? The ability to deliver change faster from code to deployment and do it more frequently with less risk adds significant value to the customer's business or mission. These metrics compare the most leading organizations that are practicing these techniques against the lower performers, which is why you see huge gaps in 208 times frequently deployed or 7 times lower change failure. Right? As more and more customers are recognizing the benefits of these indicators, they become eager to experience those same results. But there are many important factors to DevOps for DevOps to succeed in any setting, right? And you can explore a lot of those by reading this report. I highly encourage you to do that. But if we look at these 4 key metrics, one theme that we're going to focus on for the moment is automation. Right? It's the kind of automation that enables stakeholders to collaborate and deliver value faster than ever before.
Yep. So when we're talking, the context of what we're trying to present here is really, we have teams, right? And those teams have a certain set of skills, and then we have things that our customers want automated to deliver results. And how do we match those two together? Through recruiting, training, hiring, all that stuff, getting our teams ready to automate and automate in a way that they can grow and build upon those skills. So the first thing that we like to focus on is, what is it that we're trying to automate, right? So we have this team, they're ready to go. They may not have done this before. What are we going to look at automating? So we split it up usually into 4 different areas, and these aren't job roles, right? These are kind of the capabilities that your team's going to encounter when they first need to deal with automation. And we split it up into platforms, applications, security, and operations, right? Platforms being your cloud, your on-premise, whatever architecture, your networking, maybe container orchestration, Kubernetes. Application, I think, goes without saying. It's the app you're building, the app you're deploying. You're doing your continuous integration and delivery, and you're managing the dependencies of that application. Particularly important to us, since we work in the federal sector, is security, right? People need to be familiar with hardening, compliance, and auditing, so we make sure that what we build is secure. And then, of course, there's the day-to-day operations. There's your configuration management and your monitoring and your maintenance, things like patching. And these are things that the team needs to be familiar with when bringing DevOps into any organization. So here's a couple of logos, right? When you're starting out on as what Keith mentioned as your DevOps journey with your team, you're going to encounter all these tools. There are a lot of great options. These are just some of them. Some aren't shown here, some are. And we're not saying that we endorse or don't endorse any of these right here. It's just the kind of things that you're going to run into. We don't recommend any of them. Well, we are in ChefConf, so, but there are just a lot of options for you. So once you've decided what you're going to do as far as tools, you still have to decide who's going to do the work, right? We're a chef shop. We work with Chef. Maybe someone decided to do Ansible and they're trying to integrate Ansible with Terraform. But once you have that, you need to choose these tools and then to look at the problems those tools are trying to solve. And you have to tackle how your team is going to learn and use those tools. So who's going to do that, right? So there's two options for you, really. You have your existing team that you've trained or you haven't trained, that they're familiar with these tools or they're not. Or you can go look for a new hire, right? You can bring somebody on who matches the skills that you're looking for. Try to bring somebody on who matches those skills. So the advantage to bringing someone on your existing team is that they have knowledge of your customer and your business and your systems, right? How your team already works, how your company already works. You can reward them with new experiences by bringing them into new projects, but that's going to require some training usually. You understand who they are, you understand what their skills are, but nothing's perfect. No team has all the skills you need. And then there's also the fear of change issue, right? That people have been doing things for a long time. Then you bring them into something new that sometimes they can get a little scared or they're not ready to change. On the other hand, you can go look for that great new hire, right? Try to hire that unicorn, that person who brings the exact skills into your organization. That's a great thing too. It brings new perspective, new experience, and a diversity of thought to the team. Maybe somebody who has done things that your team hasn't done. But of course, it takes a lot of time and resources. It's an extremely competitive market out there right now. And you probably, my guess, and this has been my experience, it's going to be very difficult for you to match the exact skills with your exact project goals. It requires also that person to get familiar with your business and your team's culture and the technical stacks that you're using necessarily, right? So they might be working on OpenShift and then you're using Rancher. So there's going to be a little translation. There's always going to be some training time. But the key is, no matter what you pick, and they both have their great merits, and if you're going to continue doing a technical transformation, if you're going to do your DevOps journey, you're going to have to invest in your people. You're never going to get away from that. So just to tell you a little bit about ourselves and to give us some background as to why we're here telling you this and what we're trying to tell you that we've done and had some good experience with. We're a small company. We currently have about 60 employees and we're trying to grow every day. And we found that growing is difficult. It's not necessarily due to lack of opportunities. We've got a lot of opportunities. It's to build that staff when we have those needs. So we're a public sector contractor, meaning we work a lot with the federal government in the intelligence community, Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, a lot of different places that mostly focus on public and government. We do some state and local. We have some commercial stuff, but that's our main focus. We have a lot of projects that have been continuing for years and years. And then we have new projects that pop up all the time and they change in size. The government changes, right? They ramp up, they ramp down. So we're always chasing that staffing level for every project that we have. And the requirements are usually very specific and sometimes very stringent, especially since we need clearances, right? 95% of our people are cleared at top secret and higher. And most of the people we try to bring on either have to be clearable or preferably already have a clearance. So that limits the pool even more for us as far as finding skilled talent. And it's a very competitive market, right? We're competing with the Lockheed Martins, the Northrop Grummans, or the government itself sometimes. And we're trying to bring people in, and especially in the DC area, things move really quick, right? People have all these opportunities and they might give you a day or two. If that, you might be lucky. But overall, the biggest important part is our reputation, right? We're a small company. So who we bring on and who we bring over to the customer reflects greatly on us. And that's true for all companies, but for small businesses, it's even more important, right? Where one hire can represent us on a contract and that can kind of make or even break us. So who we hire, and especially the culture and the fit on the team of that person, is extremely important.
So we know that the only hope for us is to grow, is to bring on more people. All right, we've got some constraints, we have some challenges. So in an attempt to continue our growth and in an attempt to grow in the DevOps space, right, we want to continue to work with talented people whose potential and character aligns with our team mission and our cultural values. So to start with this, we captured those values and we kind of use it as a North Star to help remind us about what's important. Right? So we're focusing on better ways of developing our teams to support our customers and each other. Through this work, we've come to value motivation and ownership over responsibility, adaptability over specific skills and past experiences, curiosity and experimentation over established practices and procedures, listening and collaborating over working independently, and continuous learning over formal education. So what we value these things on the right? We value the items on the left even more, right? These qualities are not mutually exclusive. Everything on this page is important to us. It drives us in our candidate interviews, to employee reviews and goal setting, right? And everything in between. One of the many factors in a successful DevOps organization is having a culture that allows for the type of change necessary to grow. Our experience is that when we focus on these values, the ones on the right that are bold, and build them into our teams, they're able to make more positive impact in their projects, with their customers, and with each other. Now, in addition to focusing and nurturing those cultural values, it's just as important for us to focus and hone our technical competencies, right? Those capability areas Chris talked about earlier. When we bring on new engineering talent, they're typically skilled in at least one of these 4 areas. Again, platforms, automating, the cloud, on-premise, working with containers, architecting infrastructure, applications, development, testing, CI/CD pipelines, security with compliance and auditing and hardening, or operational monitoring, availability, routine maintenance, patching. Those types of, job functions or tasks or responsibilities are usually, these are the buckets, usually that the people we bring on or that we've been working with have kind of typically operate within. These technical competencies align with our automation objectives and contribute to customer success, right? If we can automate these things, we can help drive the customer's value and deliver things faster. Our goal with growing our existing teams and new hires is to ensure that they have the breadth of understanding of all of these areas, in addition to their depth of knowledge for the focused specialty that they already have. As an application developer, it's important to understand some of these other components. As part of that journey, we explore each of these areas. There's a strong emphasis in embracing automation. Additionally, through learning and practicing each of these competencies, our teams have established a shared ownership of their projects with different stakeholders that they interact with. This builds strong relationships within the teams and across them. So, going back to that huge list of tools that Chris showed earlier, right? There's a wide landscape of available products that excel in one or more of those technical competencies. So we have to choose the tools that we need to use to better understand them and work with our teams to help them grow, right? But our goal is to help our teams grow and explore all those competencies. We're not necessarily concerned with teaching specific individual tools and how they work or their intricacies. And we certainly can't learn every tool, right? So we're more interested in understanding the problems that the tools themselves solve for those competencies and how those tools might span multiple technical areas, right? If we can limit the number of tools to support those goals, we can also avoid burning ourselves out with tool saturation. So in that exploration, what we found is Chef Effortless does a great job in providing coverage in our focus competencies while simultaneously providing wide range exposure to the DevOps skills landscape for all of our team members. So Chef Effortless or Chef Enterprise, right? With everything that Chef Effortless provides and does, like the mantra is everything lives as code, which means that everything can be automated, right? That automation allows for applications and infrastructure to be packaged, configured, deployed with repeatable results, right? You combine that automation with the validation support from testing tools like Chef Inspect, and now introducing changes becomes less risky and builds confidence in our teams and in our customers. Finally, after everything is shipped and running, Chef Effortless provides the visibility into the operational status of our applications, our infrastructure, and our compliance postures. Right? This single solution stack helps focus us from becoming overwhelmed with tool saturation. Each component in this stack works cohesively with the others and also integrates well with other solutions from different vendors. So even if there's a problem that we face that Chef isn't designed to solve, right, we know we can complement our existing solution of tools and capabilities with other options from other vendors. So using those components of the Chef stack, right, we create steps that are part of what's called a learning pipeline for our developers, our system administrators, the people that we are bringing in that fall into those technical categories, right? It's a maturing process where each step builds on the one before it, right? So once people achieve specific milestones in this pipeline, they're ready to take on the next step until they get to the end, right? So the pipeline starts with applications that we're building in-house. This includes things like internal tools or products and services that we offer some select non-clear customers. After they become comfortable in their new projects, whether they're existing projects or greenfield efforts, right? And they're ready to start sharing their work with their customers or their teams, we ask them a question. What has to happen to get your work in front of our users? The challenge that they have to overcome is understanding and implementing that pipeline to deliver their project to production. So for this example, we're going to approach our learning pipeline from the perspective of an application developer. The first step in our journey starts locally with our application. Running an application in a new environment requires understanding its runtime components and their dependencies. Chef Habitat forces us to recognize those dependencies early, so that way they can be packaged with our application, making our deployments more portable with less worry about whether our target environment is set up correctly. Those dependencies include system libraries or external services like databases, caches, web servers. Once that application is packaged and we understand how it runs and integrates with other components, we can start to lay down the initial foundation, which will become our automated pipeline to get us from application to delivery and production. Those new changes should automatically, any new changes to our project or application should automatically be tested and provide updated package builds, right, ready for the next step of this pipeline journey. So, okay, now it's time to deploy. So we built our application, we were able to package it, but where does this package go, right? So now we have to build infrastructure and create environments for developers and testers and customers to exercise it, and run it through the motions, right? Designing and implementing networks, spinning up virtual machines, provisioning storage, depending on the individual and their past experiences, could be a new skill that they're developing, and it's certainly a valuable one, for our developer teams. Once those environments are created, Chef Habitat comes back into the picture as the mechanism used to run, configure, and update that packaged application. Right? Chef products have proven to integrate seamlessly with other industry tools too. And in this particular case, because we've had to build infrastructure, we're using Chef Habitat in conjunction with HashiCorp Terraform to stand up that initial deployment. And because of that, once our infrastructure is available, like our applications are also immediately available. And once that application is deployed and running, now we have visibility into its status, right? What version is currently deployed? Has it been updated recently? What's its current health? Is it down? All of that is available through Chef Automate. The end result is now our developers are exposed to a larger ecosystem and all the moving cogs that make a system tick. Applications have to coexist with other applications and system services. Becoming familiar with these relationships not only provides a more holistic view of our systems, but it reveals seams within the system that can be used to troubleshoot problems when they occur. These are valuable skills that we're picking up, that our developers are picking up through this journey, and they don't even know it yet. So, all right, great. So we've built the application and packaged it, tested it. We've built infrastructure and deployed it. So we're done now, right, Chris?
Absolutely, everything's done. No, we're not done. Absolutely. We still have more work to do, right? So before anything gets production, especially in our environment, we need to make sure that our systems are secure. We need to put the sec back in DevSecOps. Depending on the application and industry you work in, there's going to be different regulations that you have to deal with, right? And compliance concerns for each of those. Namely for us, in the public sector, we look at FISMA, we look at NIST 853 and DISA STIGs particularly, right? You might have to deal with HIPAA, you might have to deal with PHI or GDPR. And these all play a huge role, especially for us in accrediting a system. We need to get what's called an authority or an approval to operate before we can even put anything in production. And that means someone has to come in and say, yeah, you're secure, you're good. And we need to be able to show them that at any moment. So by exposing our team to these stringent, and they are stringent, compliance processes, we kind of underscore the importance of standards, compliance, and security and how they get influenced by each part of the system, right? So coming from an application developer perspective, we usually try to take a test-driven development approach. We do this by writing and reusing our inspect compliance profiles to validate our security posture. So at the end of the day, once we have that done, we have a dashboard, right? A red-green test report, something we can hand to somebody coming out of Chef Automate that people can act on, right? Either the isms or the developers mitigating things, or management who has to say, okay, well, you know, we'll get a waiver for that. So we have items that we can remediate and make our systems more resilient, but we have a learning opportunity too for all our engineering folks to dive deeper and see what each of these controls now mean and why they're important. Because you're seeing the effect on the entire system. So you look at audit rules, right? You look at something as internal as kernel parameters, SSH configuration. If you're running an Ansible, you got to be able to SSH to every machine. So we need to see that too. These are system concepts that a lot of developers might not get exposed to in their traditional training or in their computer science background, or when they've been focused strictly on the application layer. But now they're brought in to see all that. And there's one more part of this too that we're hammering home here. Our Chef Inspect tests, they're code just like anything else. Inspect itself is an application just like anything else we deploy. So we leverage the same exact techniques that we built in the previous two steps to deploy this as well, Inspect, using Chef Habitat. So the cycle continues, right? So now that we have, thanks to Chef Inspect and all these ridiculous regulations that we have to follow, we still have some work to do, right? It turns out you can't just spin up a vanilla AMI or a RHEL template and have a secure operating system. We have our infrastructure set up. We have to now actually configure everything on it properly. So that's where Chef Infra comes in. Chef Infra, of course, most of you are familiar with, provides a framework that uses code to configure the state of our systems. This helps to lower the barrier for our application developers to manage servers by applying the software development techniques that they already have to a new domain, system administration. So now we can spend more time learning the configuration resources provided by Chef Infra and how they modify our systems to satisfy any maybe failing Chef Inspect reports that we have. So once the Chef Infra code is deployed in managing our systems, just like its sibling products, as a result of all those configuration runs, they're reported to Chef Automate and they get a success, a good, bad, right? So now the developers are seeing how their code directly impacts system configuration and how they react to that. And to make one more point, not to make it abundantly clear, Chef Infra, again, is just another application. It's just more code. It's just something else we package with Habitat, right? And we deploy it and run it throughout our system. So we're keeping that thread going of everything's an application and everything's code, and everybody's learning that.
So once we've gone through that whole process of building our applications, building infrastructure and deploying and running applications, testing our environments and assessing our security posture and the resiliency of our systems, and configuring our infrastructure, you know, now we're ready and confident in what we're delivering to production, right? And we've automated it. We've built a pipeline. In addition to learning all these steps incrementally, we've also built that automated pipeline to streamline how future changes continue to roll out through this process. Now, this journey is specific to us in this particular case, and is certainly tailored to the perspective of application developers, but that doesn't preclude it from being tailored to support other roles, right? So from system administrators' perspective, they might prefer to focus more on configuration or hardening of a server before they start working with the applications that they might need to be spinning up, like different services such as DNS or LDAP or wikis and other kind of core services that a lot of organizations have that could be supported by these tools. Like, the learning pipeline is flexible and it can be tailored to those individuals by using the skills that they already have as a launching point to starting down the same journey. So the steps could be the same, but maybe they're just in a different order. As long as the steps build upon their existing experience and expose them to a new domain of knowledge, they're learning the skills that derive their own relationships and understandings across all parts of the DevOps landscape. So, now, through this learning process, they are not alone, right? The only way to make this work is with support and resources. Every step of the learning pipeline is supported by a multitude of those resources. We're going to focus on a few here, the most important of which is mentorship. Absolutely critical. Explaining concepts, helping to break down problems, and pairing on work is just an important part of the learning process. Right? We leverage our senior engineers for this, and it's absolutely required for us in order for this to be successful. Chef provides their own resources for learning tools, for learning their tools. Now, obviously, that would include their documentation, which is really great. But additionally, there's the Learn Chef Rally site. That plays a key role in the initial exposure to some of these chef tools, getting an understanding of the basic interfaces to using them and the initial problems that they solve before we start applying it to ourselves internally. One more resource that's available, which I think makes Chef particularly unique and valuable, is its community. Right? It's incredibly intimidating to walk into a room full of strangers and ask a question about something you don't know. But this community does an amazing job of making people feel supported. So whether it's Slack or a forum, or if you're leveraging open source contributions from groups like the sous chefs, cookbooks, maybe inspect profiles, right? When it comes to leveraging the community, we've had great success in overcoming very specific problems and very interesting challenges when applying Chef tools to our projects. Now, in addition to all this, we've been consumers of that community and we're incredibly grateful for it. And in our attempt to continue to improve our process, the nice thing about Chef is its tools are all open source and the community is also open and welcoming. So it's also very possible and obtainable to become contributors to that community as well. And that's something that we're looking to grow into.
Cool. So I want to take a little bit of time here to talk about what we've done really and how this has worked at TapHere. So to reiterate, we run most of the people that we bring on, especially if they're entry level or if they're coming from a different field, through this learning pipeline using Chef Effortless and Chef Enterprise. Keith and other senior developers and myself, we're always there along the way. We do a lot of mentorship. And what this does is it level sets our employees, right? So they're all on the same page and we all know where we're coming from. But one of the primary things that it's done is we say it's leveled up a lot of our employees. So we bring in sysadmins, we bring in developers, we bring in security people. We need them all to be on the same level and operating at a high performance level. If someone were to ask me what keeps you up at night as a small business owner, the number one thing is your people, right? Hiring, getting the right people, making sure those people are happy and they stay, and making sure that they perform at a level that keeps your customers happy as well. So when your employees and your customers are happy, you as a business owner, you're happy, obviously. So the key to that is culture. You can't get away from it, right? Culture is the number one thing that keeps people satisfied when they're working for you, and it trickles down immediately to your customers, and it comes back in karma, right? If you have a bad culture, it's going to come back through your customers, and people are not going to be pleased with your work, and you're going to have a bad time. And so the number one thing we do when we hire is we hire for culture fit. Yeah, skills are important. We do look at resumes. Of course, we have interviews. But if someone's not a culture fit, that's a no-go. It really doesn't matter to me if they have the most amazing skills in the world. It's a non-starter. Conversely, if someone does have the culture fit, and maybe they don't have every skill and background that we want, well, that's why we have the learning pipeline. That's why we know that if they are understanding our values and are willing to learn, we bring them through. And what we've had is we've produced more well-rounded engineers all through. The great thing about this too is that our entire team, and even across teams now, we all speak one language, and that one language is Chef, right? They can relate this to others. We've had people recently transitioned, entry-level team members, people right out of college who learned on Chef, we brought them into an Ansible project that we're doing right now for the Air Force. That person didn't know Ansible at all, but they knew Chef. They knew the entire pipeline. They knew everything about Chef Effortless and everything that they needed to do. So they were able to say, okay, so these Ansible playbooks, I see where that relates to Chef. They were able to look at the reporting that we were doing and say, okay, yeah, that's like what I do in Automate. Okay. We were running tests using Tox and Python. They say, okay, I've done this in Inspect before. Maybe Inspect does a little better and we can bring it in, but they understand the concepts. So this lets them move on to complex customer projects, and they've been contributing from the beginning because they have the culture and they understand the concepts. They're working with these different tools that they haven't seen before, but since we attack it as the problem, not the tool, they're employing the same concepts they've learned, and they snap right into that new tool and are able to relate it and talk to the rest of our team if they need reach back. And they know they have reach back, right? So they know they learned this together with the rest of the team. And they did a peer exercise with somebody that was also new to the tools and to the problems. So they know that they can call up Rachel and say, hey, I don't understand this problem exactly. Do you remember how we solved that using Chef? Oh yeah, that's what we did. Oh, we can apply that over here. And that reach back is extremely important because they can cover almost any skill. It's good then to have people that don't have some experience and have some others on your team. It's good to have a developer working with a sysadmin, and when they're both going to a DevOps role. In the end, that means customers are happy and they want more of what they've been seeing, right? We've had people say, can you clone this person? It happens a lot when we bring in new developers who are amazing and are able to reach in all parts of the enterprise. And at the end of the night or the day, what that means is, as a business owner and as a, if you're in HR or management or you're a developer lead, we're less afraid of hiring, right? We're less afraid of making those mistakes as saying, well, this person might not satisfy the need. We know they're on the same page as us, both culture-wise and with a technical foundation, right? Not a list of skills, a foundation. So in summary, and to sum this up, hopefully succinctly, the number one thing, and I think this is obvious for most people working today, is you have to invest in your people. Throwing out nets and hoping to catch some stuff and get lucky and have people ready to go on day one, it's not realistic anymore. Unless you want to really narrow your scope. And if you want to really narrow your scope, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So don't get hung up on the skills that your people don't have. Don't ever say something like, they've got Chef, but they don't have Ansible. That doesn't matter, right? Look at their culture, look at their understanding of concepts. Don't be afraid of training and mentorship. You're gonna have to do it anyways. This myth of bringing on the most senior person and having them run, that might happen now and again, but it's less and less, right? The landscape will change before that person is hired and ready to go. And that means that the time you spent wasted, I consider it wasted, searching for that eternal exact fit of someone who's got your exact skill list, is time wasted that you could be developing an engineer. And even if it's a senior person, that's even quicker, right? They don't have the exact skill, they should be able to pick it up right away. But the junior and the entry level and the transitioning engineers are the one where you really get that return on your investment. So you kind of need to reevaluate what you value when you're reviewing your potential candidates. Talent does not equal a traditional background. You're not going to always find somebody with a traditional background. I've seen it nonstop. You got to move away from that old HR mentality of where you have a list of keywords and resume matches. You're going to have to do some work in your organization afterwards to build those developers and those engineers up. Don't dwell on the formal education. I know that's a problem we've had with the government a lot. They love to see a master's in CS or something like that. And we've had to sit down and say, look, you're not going to get somebody that's got 8 years of Chef experience and Kubernetes and a master's in CS and a top secret clearance, and they're ready to go tomorrow. You're not being reasonable. So we kind of tell them, say, look, have a little faith. We have a program that we use to get these people up to speed, and it works. And we're going to show you it's going to work. One thing I want to point out real quick too, and it's something that's been a little controversial lately. in my opinion, and a lot of folks that I've spoken to, the code test, the filters that a lot of people, employers put up, and I know there are automated things to do this, where you give somebody a code test before they even get to the next interview stage, don't use those. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face when you do that. You're missing out on even talking to a person that might have the exact same value fit, that has the curiosity and a foundation in something that might be adjacent, but not exact. And I don't see any place in my 22 years of experience where code filters, code tests have served any viable purpose. A good engineer, a good interviewer should be able to determine whether someone has that technical background. And if not, guess what? You might have to do some training and build them up. Look at boot camps, boot campers. Look at career shifters. Look at self-learners. We had some great, just recently, some great experience working with somebody who came over from the financial industry and said, I'm done with that. I'm going into tech. And they had that analytical mindset and they picked up everything. And it worked really well. They can do the job, again, if they fit your culture. And that's where we apply the tools we know, this, in this instance being Chef Effortless, as a framework and a foundation to train those people. So those concepts transcend what tools you pick. Your culture transcends your resumes. Again, we still look at them, but culture is way more important. Utilize your senior engineers not to go out there and just sling code, right? Bring them back home sometimes and have them multiply their impact by training through mentorship and showing every part of this pipeline and saying, you know, that's a good example of how this always fails. Or that's a great example of how things used to work, but we now have automation that solves this through Chef. And that can be applied to other things like, well, that's how containers work, or this is why we deploy in this way and we secure things. Chef Effortless is an excellent analog for what we call the entire DevSecOps problem space. So when you're applying one tool that you know and that you're familiar with, you relate it to the entire larger problem space. By using those tools that you have and you know, you demonstrate to everybody else how things work. And through that, we've been able to build engineers that are versatile, flexible, and able to move into new opportunities, even if they haven't faced them before. And a lot of them do it on their own, but they know that they've got backing. And that's the most important thing. And Chef Effortless is an excellent way to bridge that gap and to tie everything together and speak the same language. And that's what we've found success with. Anything else to add at the end, Keither?
No.
So that's us. You know, it's some of this might come off as a lot of obvious to people right now, but I think a lot of folks don't realize that you know, you can use the things that you have, and that Chef Effortless is a great way to kind of cover a lot of that landscape internally and bring people on the same page. So I don't know if we have any questions.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask the guys? There was a lot in there. Oh my goodness. I'll be nosy. So of things that you guys have been at this a while. So like, what do you see that is still sort of missing in the workforce? Like, are you seeing specific tool sets or methodologies that folks just haven't caught up with yet? Or is it all just following the newest stuff that people are?
I wouldn't say specific methodologies or tools necessarily. With an exception of containers and Kubernetes, that's something that's vastly underrepresented right now as far as what filling skill sets. But the overall idea of, you know, a developer who knows about systems, or a sysadmin who knows how to use Git and knows some software engineering concepts. There's a gap between there. And then security kind of floats above that. You have a lot of security people that understand technical concepts, but they don't get into the weeds enough. They don't understand the mechanics enough to, you know, to really understand what it means to mitigate, fix, and report. So you've got that triad of your developers, your sysadmins, and your security. And they're starting to bleed into each other and be more multi-domain, but that's where we find a lot of problems, right? When we hire somebody and they're like, well, I'm a Java developer. I've been a Java developer for 30 years. I don't know anything about Linux. And we're like, well, we got to fix that, right? it's more about crossing the bridge between the disciplines and not considering somebody just a developer. Now, there are plenty of people out there, plenty of developers who know systems they know how to deploy, right? But those people are not out there looking for work necessarily, and they might not have the clearances we need, and they might not have the domain experience in the industry that we need. So we find ourselves being specialized, having to have a common training language and a training rhythm to bridge those gaps. And that's Chef Effortless for us.
Yeah, that's a fascinating solution to that problem. You guys have like the perfect storm of like needing absolutely everything that's possible to need.
Yeah, it's hiring is probably one of the most difficult things we do. The technology stuff's easy. That's no problem.
So anybody else have anything else they'd like to pick the guys' brains on, or we have a bit of time here to ask questions. So whatever you'd like to know, I'll keep asking. So with your sort of government, you guys are pretty government focused. So like, what do you see going forward? Like, is the government getting better at keeping up with things, or?
So that's really interesting, actually. That's it depends on the agency and the branch, right? Some are better than others, but there's been a massive focus right now on learning from industry and the government. I'm particularly right now working with an Air Force contract, and they have something called the Catalyst Campus. And what they're doing is bringing in people from industry to teach them how to do things. Years ago, I would have never thought I'd see a military branch or the government learning how to do Kubernetes, or saying we're going to deploy, inspect and run tests on ground launch systems and stuff like that. They use the old tools. They use the Nessus. They use things that have been around forever. They're starting to realize that that's not going to work, and that they're costing all of us way too much money when they insist on doing things the old waterfall, slow, monolithic, you got to know this tool way. And they at least the Air Force and the intelligence community are really starting to come to understand that everything as code makes sense. So there's a huge push. The problem is they're not finding the people. There's some controversy about that, of course, as well, about loosening up clearance requirements and all that stuff. And that's being worked, but that's the government. It moves slowly. So as the technological side, it's up to us to kind of show them and say, look, this is not the person that you would have hired 5 years ago, because they don't have this discrete skill set and this resume that you guys want, which doesn't exist, right? The government is excellent at making the impossible job wreck. But we've been able to show them that, technology is not the same as it used to be. You're not just an Oracle DBA. You're not just a sysadmin. So they're waking up. Of course, they're not waking up as fast as some other industries, but they're going to have to, because there's going to be a skills crunch and there's going to be a staffing crunch. They've been feeling it for years already. So when people that they need dry up, they've got to move, and they're starting to move. So yeah, they're moving in the right direction. Of course, not as fast as they probably should.
Has that been like a snowball effect of the USDS? Is that even still in play?
That is still in play, and
Yeah,
definitely plays a role. I don't know much about, they operate with specific agencies, and I can't speak to their portfolio. They're not everywhere. They're certainly not ubiquitous, but they are making a significant impact in a lot of agencies. So, yeah.
and what a lot of agencies will do is they might not directly employ that, but they'll copy. There's a lot of crib sheets and plagiarism, self-plagiarism that goes on in the government. Like, they'll set up a similar thing that's just slightly shifted. So yeah, there is an impact there, and I think even with current world events, obviously, they know that this has woken them up. Actually, COVID has woken them up to the fact that not everybody can be in a skiff all the time. Not everybody can be at a base all the time. We need to be able to support people that work remotely. We need to support people that might have different life schedules, that they're not getting up at 6 a.m. commuting into DC. Once they, that opens up an additional pool to them, right? Of people in the middle of the country or that are, somewhere else that have the skills and the want to work and do these things. But aren't going to move to the DC area because it's too expensive or it's too crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of downstream impact from that sort of flexibility. So.
There is, and it's kind of a loop, right? So industry teaches government, but then government, like, you go far as like NASA. Man, I hope that thing launches on Saturday. I know I was so disappointed at the scrub, but so I'm, that comes back, and their public-private relationships that are being formed right now are really informing the scientific community and the technological community, and there's a lot of sharing going on there now. So I would tell people when looking at government, don't look at the politicians, don't look at that stuff, right? Because that's filtered, that's a mess. But there's a lot of good work being done down at the ground level, where people are actually doing things and actually moving data or watching the skies or things like that. And then, yeah, there's plenty of controversy, but remember, it's still people, and people are the most important thing in any industry, whether it's healthcare or government or finance. There's still people down there, and we want to get the best people in, and that's again goes back to the culture fit. I think bringing people in by culture fit to the government makes government better versus just having people that know how to sling the code they want or know how to operate the database that they want.
What do you see with new grads, like for kids coming out of college, like this year, but like just recently too, like what's the path for that? Like I came into the industry via the government 20 some odd years ago too, but like it was like hard recruiting and like.
Yeah, so it's changed. So especially when it comes to contractors and stuff and working for contractors and getting cleared. The nice thing about college students is that the government is a lot more lenient on someone just coming out of college when it comes to clearances and stuff like that than somebody who's been around for 25 years. I'm out in Colorado. Keith is out in the DC area. We have an office outside of Denver as well, and my work is in Colorado Springs. Obviously, a big question out here is, you have people that come out of college that probably may have experimented with certain things.
Yep.
And that, it's a big deal out here, and the government they're starting to realize, like, well, we're not going to preclude a smart person who really wants to make an impact because they smoked pot a couple of times in college. That's all changing. They're no longer doing the 5-year updates where they put you through the ringer every few years. They do what's called continuous evaluation. So they kind of just watch and make sure you don't get arrested or don't do anything. It's not as intrusive, I would say, as far as stopping your life and doing anything. But for grads, I would hammer home that it's going to be easier for you to get in at that level than later, right? Everybody that comes into the government at that level is given a little bit of leeway and some learning time. And your potential once you get in, I mean, we've seen people just take off, right? We do an internship program, and all of our interns, once we bring them in, they're like, we love these guys, and they instantly become leads and sources of knowledge for everybody else. So it's a really great way, and there's some cool tech going on too. We work a lot with the FFRDCs like MITRE and Aerospace, and they have we've been up to the Bedford MITRE lab where they have like virtual reality stuff and all kinds of AI labs. There's a lot of that going on too in the government. So it's not all stodgy either. And I know I'm almost sounding like an Army recruiter here, but I'm not military, right? I'm a tech guy. I started out in the .com era, and there's a lot going on. And I'd say grads have some excellent opportunities right now to both learn a lot of things, and I'll be honest with you, make a decent amount of money coming into the government.
Awesome. We do have one additional question, not from me, from anonymous attendee. Would like to know, in the federal space, what do you see from the agencies that adopt Chef do better or differently compared to agencies that sort of struggle with that transition?
Yeah, so Keith, you can speak to that too, but I'll tell you right now, we've been a champion for Chef. There's a lot of affinity to the Red Hats and the IBMs of the world. And my opinion is that they do eventually, when they see things like Chef, they come around. Terraform and the HashiCorp stack is another one, to be honest with you. We've had a lot of places that I've worked at that have tried, right, to implement things. and they need some guidance. But once they do get that guidance and they understand that DevOps requires buy-in and that they actually start using Chef, people find that you can influence change so much faster. And influencing change is probably the toughest thing to do in the government. Would you not agree, Keith?
Yeah, no, influence and change is where I was going to go with that too. And it doesn't really limit itself to Chef, right? So if an agency or a department or organization is using Chef or Ansible or SaltStack or Puppet, you know, whatever that technology transformation is, if it's, automating your deployments, implementing pipelines, delivering change faster, it's an incremental process, and that's the change that you're looking for. So the agencies that are embracing that, compared to the agencies that aren't, are, what you would see is the same thing that you see in private sector industry, or the same thing that you see in the DOOR report. Those trends are consistent, I think, between public sector and private sector. If organizations are willing to take the step to either change their culture and embrace the tools that enable them to deliver things faster, right? They're going to be able to respond to law changes more quickly, deliver critical information and resources to citizens, faster, and they're going to be able to pivot when certain things within political offices and administrations and laws change. So that's what I see is kind of the difference, and being able to validate and have that high degree of confidence that when you do deliver that change, that it's not going to go down on you. It's going to stay available, and you have that assurance that your citizens and your users will be able to benefit from it.
And I'll add one more thing to that. Back at the culture level, one thing that things like Chef do encourage is a culture of transparency, which is something that's often sorely lacking in government, right? Whether it be leaks or privacy issues or, reliability and bugs, and the fail fast, fail quick, show everything and get everything on a report is something that sometimes the government is not so good at. And once you start that from the bottom up and you start exposing these things at a technical level, it helps to raise other topics, right? Look at all this stuff we're showing that is being exposed in this security report. Well, maybe we need to look at privacy issues a little better. Maybe we then need to focus on, how we categorize things and how we report things up the chain. So it brings a lot of things to light, and light is probably the toughest thing to get into a lot of these government organizations, sometimes for good reason, but other times not so good. And I think using just DevOps practices and tools like the entire Chef Effortless stack, at least at the technological level where we're involved, helps a lot with transparency. And that's an important thing in government.
Cool. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, I got all my questions answered. So
Thanks,
that's
Mandy.
the important part. So if anybody else has anything else last couple minutes here, otherwise we'll let you go. Thank you so much for your session.
All right. Thanks, Mandy.